You're listening to A Glimpse Inside on the Super Power Up Network, the show that affirms for people there is more to life, and it is possible to be happy, inspired, successful, joyous, and free. Welcome to A Glimpse Inside. I'm Wendy Perrotti. You're listening to episode 2 of our 4-part series, Letting Happiness Win. If you missed episode 1, What's Really Behind a Happy Life, with my guest Justin Rekla, you'll want to check it out. Justin's got the secret sauce to happiness pretty well sewn up. My guest today, like many of us, has had some really tough times. She's turning her life around and wants to be happy. Before we say hello to Cherese, I'd like to take a moment to remind you of the rules of the game here on A Glimpse Inside's coaching episodes. This isn't about telling people how to fix their lives. Life is messy, and that's okay. Plus, the sorts of quote-unquote answers that are meant to fix us are the very things that leave short-lived solutions and keep us stuck. The work we do here is about seeing ourselves, others, and life in general clearly and without judgment. It's about using that new awareness to interact in new ways, to experiment with our lives in real time. We often attempt to create solutions to our problems that are just as complex as the problems themselves. With so many moving parts, we set ourselves up for failure, and we do this stuff every single day. Here, what we're looking for is what works in people's lives as much as we look for what doesn't. And we build on that, just like a toddler learning to stand before he walks, walk before she runs. We're learning to live in open curiosity. We're learning to play with the elements of our lives until we find out what fits us. And by us, I mean us as individuals best. We're turning life itself into a laboratory for growth. And while change may be constant, my friends, growth only happens in one direction. Nothing, absolutely nothing in nature ungrows, and neither will you. So welcome, Cherese.
Hi, Wendy. Hi, everyone.
Thank you so much for being brave and agreeing to do this work publicly so that others can benefit too.
Absolutely. Anytime I can help, I'm ready to dive in.
Atta girl. So before we start the coaching, what's important for us to know about you? Would you be willing to tell us your story?
Oh boy, how much time do we have? So I am 43 years old. I'm in the process of a divorce. I have a 25-year-old daughter, and I have a 4-month-old granddaughter. I was a teenage mom. I got pregnant my senior year in high school. And at that time, my mom was still alive then, and very, very religious family. So that was a no-no, But I defied all the odds. The negative connotation around teenage mothers is that, you're going to become a statistic and you're going to end up this way and you're going to end up that way. And I said, absolutely not. I can't let that happen to me. So I graduated high school. I went to work not too long after I graduated, and I continued to progress. I graduated with a trade in cosmetology, which was my passion, to be able to help people and make them feel better about themselves, which was awesome. At the age of 23, I moved from New York to Pennsylvania. I purchased my first home after I separated from my daughter's father. And I said, I wanted to have a better life for her and for myself. Well, not too long after that, and my family, on my mother's side of the family, had actually relocated to PA prior. But not too long after that, I lost my job. So I had just bought this house. I was in a new state, and things were kind of upside down due to my health. I was having some pain that was unexplained. But now we link it back to something else that happened when I was 14 with my ovaries, and I lost my job. So that put me into the work market in Pennsylvania, which was completely different than New York. I was working for less than half of what I was making in New York City with a child and a mortgage and all of that fun stuff. Few months after I lost my job, my mom passed away, and she was like my rock, and here I am at 23 years old. And I just moved, and I'm like, God, why did this happen? And I was very angry for a while, because I was just devastated that my mom was taken from me at such a young age. But at that time, I didn't understand why all these things were happening. A month later, her sister, my aunt, which was very close to me, passed away. And they both passed away the same way. They both died in their sleep. So that caused me to go into a depression. And at that time, I was diagnosed with anxiety because I was scared to go to sleep and my heart would race and, all these crazy things would happen. And long story short, I ended up getting diagnosed with a autoimmune disorder and heart disease, which my mom and my aunt both had. So that scared me even more because I'm like, okay, this took their lives, what about me, and then who's going to take care of my daughter? God forbid something happens. So I really had to dig deep to try to figure out what my purpose was. And I knew it was something along the lines of being able to help women and help them understand that because they have circumstances in their lives, that doesn't mean that their life is over or that they should be written off. So not too long after my aunt passed, I started the relationship with my soon-to-be ex-husband now. We dated for about 4 years. And then we got married in 2004. In that time, I started a business, a hair salon with a few other ladies that I was working with. I went to work for Verizon for a while. I couldn't take that because the stress at that job was just way too much for me to deal with. So we went and we opened our own business. And from there, I went to open 6 different locations. And for a few years, I had 2 salons running at the same time until my health took a drastic turn. Right before my health took a drastic turn, my dad had 2 heart attacks, a stroke, and I nursed him back to health. And when he got on his feet, he went to get his own apartment, which we didn't want him to do. And they found him passed away inside his apartment. It was about 6 months after he moved out. So the stress,
Wow.
all the trauma and everything, it just kept mounting and mounting and mounting. And I just kept pushing because, that's all I knew to do. In the interim, part-time, I was training to be a financial analyst and life insurance as well. So I was training to help people get their lives together, get their debt together, how to save for retirement, teach them about money and that sort of thing. But when my health went for a nosedive in 2007, it was like 3 years after I got married, it got really, really bad. And I was not able to work. So I had to see a specialist down in Atlanta. And when they opened me up, they discovered that I had stage 4 endometriosis. It was all over my abdominal cavity, all the way up to my gallbladder and my liver. So they had to completely clean all that out. I lost my uterus. I lost my cervix. I lost my left ovary, which was completely encapsulated. And they left my right one. And they took my gallbladder out. So that surgery had a recovery time of 13 months. In 13 months' time, the disease was so aggressive, it came back. But my health, I was in no physical or mental condition to travel back down to Atlanta because they wanted to do more surgery for me. So I was referred to another doctor up here, up in New York. But the crazy thing about this disease is that the specialists don't accept insurance. So you have to pay out of pocket, and it's to the tune of like $5,000, $7,000, $8,000 just to go in for the surgery. And then, as you guys know, being sick for so long and not working, you mount up, you know, a lot of debt, medical bills, and that sort of thing. So I had the second surgery in 2011. And that time I had 2 salons going. I had to shut both of them down because he said, this is you're in like an emergency state right now. My food wasn't digesting. I wasn't eliminating. It was just really bad. So I had to have at that time a bowel resection, a rectal resection. They took my other ovary out. I had to have my bladder reconstructed. I had a lot of work done. And during that surgery afterwards, I almost died. I was in the hospital for 5 days. Oh, I still get a little bit like just thinking about it. I was in the hospital for 5 days. I came home, and then for 3 days I had a fever, and the fever was not moving no matter what I took. So I went to the ER, and they sent me back to New York because they said I had an abscess and I needed to have an interventional procedure done, which I had no clue what that meant, but I found out when I got there. And I had that done, and then I landed back in the hospital for another 5 days because the second day I was there, the residents cut my wound open without any anesthesia, and it put my body into shock. So my blood pressure dropped, and my heart rate sped up. The machines in the room were like beeping, beeping, beeping. And the nurses came in and they were like, she's about to code. We have to get her to the CCU unit. So my 5 days in that hospital, 4 days extra, were in the CCU unit after that happened. So I tell you all of that so that you can understand where I'm coming from now. You fast forward. Yeah, we're in 2020 now. I've spent the last 9 years of my life working to recover from severe trauma, depression from losing my girly parts, and people not understanding that I look normal, I sound normal, but on the inside, I'm really not normal, and fighting for my life without taking, any pain meds and all the other medicines that I have, like 2 big freezer Ziploc bags full of that they've prescribed to me so that I can have a great quality of life. So I stand for my endo sisters as an ambassador, to show them that you can still have a vibrant life in the face of 3 autoimmune disorders and not be, bedridden. So a lot of people don't understand where I come from with my humor and the way I choose my mindset and to be happy, and certain things I just can't not allow to penetrate and stress into my my mindset. So I have to keep like a tight rein on that so that I can remain healthy, and be able to move forward. So that's a little bit about background. Long story short, without all the little stuff in between.
That is a lot, my friend.
Yes.
That is a lot. So we're going to take a break before we get to coaching. But before we do, we've got these 2 sessions together.
Mm-hmm.
What would you like to create or have happen as a result of the work that we do?
I feel like I've put myself into a box, and a box that nobody else can really see, but I feel it, and I've noticed it, and it's like I got one leg out, one foot, one leg, one arm, like my eyes are peeking over the edge, but I'm still halfway in there. So I just want to get out of the box.
Okay. We're going to get you out of that box. So far, we have heard Cherese's incredible story, and we've learned what she'd like to dive into today. When we come back from this short break, we'll get right into the coaching. And as always, give you some tips that you can start using to help with your growth and transformation as well. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Hello, everyone. This is Tonya Don Rekla, Executive Director of Superpower Experts, and we want to thank each of you for making Superpower Up the #1 podcast network for personal development and spiritual growth. Because people like you have the courage to say that mindfulness, healthy living, disrupting reality, the pursuit of consciousness, responsible entrepreneurship, and radical parenting matter. We now amass over 1 million downloads monthly in more than 90 countries. Our numbers keep growing because there are far more people willing to live divergently than mass media wants to acknowledge. For you, the change makers, the light bearers, the way showers, we say thank you. If you're ready to take the next step in your evolution, go now to superpowerexperts.com and take the Superpower Quiz. And as Neva Lee Rekla, our youngest podcaster, likes to remind us, remember, we all have superpowers and we can change the world.
I'm so happy to have you back with us. Today, you're listening to episode 2 of our 4-part series, Letting Happiness Win. We're ready to dig into some serious coaching with Cherese. Well, I'm ready. Cherese, are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right. So after you told us your incredible story, and I'm sure that everyone out there listening is like already impressed that you've done as much as you have with this mindset.
Yes.
That you've said right from the teenage pregnancy on, I am not going to be a statistic. There's power there, my friend, and we're going to tap into it.
Okay.
Okay. So you don't want to be in a box.
No.
The way out of the box is for us to really understand what the box is. What's that box made of?
Wow. That's a great question. Limitations. Every time I would progress and things would get good, I would get sick or something negative or bad would happen. So I feel like the box is like a secure place for me subconsciously, because, I'm consciously, moving along my day to day and doing what I do. But when I get home and I look at things and I'm like, I'm not really where I should be for all the work and the information and the knowledge that I have. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it absolutely does. It absolutely does. And that's what we do, right? That absolutely is a coping strategy. We build, I always use the language of cages, right? We build these cages to hold us in, and they are built bar by bar with our fear of what might happen, our fear of what we might lose if things go really well, right? The actual good things that you've nurtured in your life. We have a fear that all of a sudden, if I have this skyrocketing happiness and success, will I lose some of that part of me? And then the biggest, baddest, thickest bars, right? I'm guessing from what you've said, your legs poking out and your nose is sticking over some of those limitations. But the biggest, baddest, thickest bars are the ones that are built on the evidence of the past.
Yes.
Right? Those bars are built on the shit that has actually happened to you, Cherese. You're not making it up.
Right.
Right? So the fear that, oh my gosh, every time I nose forward, something is going to happen to derail me is real. You've got a ton of experience with that.
Yeah.
So what do we do? Right? What do we do when we have evidence that says, I've learned that things are not going to go the way that I want them to go. I've learned that bad stuff happens and it's going to derail me.
Right.
This is about a fundamental belief. Okay. And the belief is that because something has happened in the past, it doesn't mean that it is going to happen in the future.
Yes.
And it's super duper hard for our emotions to wrap around that one, right? Because we're wired to say, put my hand on the stove, ouch, I'm burnt. Put my hand on the stove, ouch, I'm burnt. We don't put our hands on the stove anymore, and that's a good thing. So everything about us is wired to say, you learn from experience.
Right.
Here's the thing about these cages of experience, however. The world is much more complex than that. It is much more complex than a red hot burner. People are much more complex than that. Our bodies, to some degree, and how they function, much more complex than that. And when you take all of that complexity and you swirl it together, what you have is infinite possibility. So yes, it's possible that bad things will happen again, but it is also equally possible that they won't. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. So another post in the cage or bar in these cages are the repetitive things that you say to yourself when you are feeling afraid or exhausted. What are those for you, Cherese?
You know what the crazy thing is that when I'm exhausted, I'm like, okay, I look back onto when I was most successful, even before the surgeries and that sort of thing. And I was in my 20s, and I would work 5 days a week, take a day just to relax and rest. But I realized, like, all these years that I just kept going and going and going and going and going. So previously, I would say to myself, you got to keep pushing, you got to hustle, you got to push through, and you got to be strong, and you're not going to be successful, and all these crazy sayings, sleep is the new broke, and all of this other stuff. But all it did was get me get me a little bit more agitated, make my anxiety worse, and all these other things. So I had to throw out the fishing reel and say, reel it back in. You got to go back to where you started. Like, when were you the most successful mentally, emotionally, and physically? And I'm not talking about money, because subconsciously, no matter what I have done for the past 20 years, my income is still exactly the same as it was when I was 23. And I realized that when I got all my 1099s from this year.
Why do you think that is?
For a long time, I was saying, I just want to be stable. I just want to be able to pay my bills. I just want to be able to blah, 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 blah. But being able to just pay the bills doesn't mean you have anything extra. That means you're just paying the bills. So it's like, it just creates like the cycle of not enough. And that's the box that I'm working to jump out of. Even though being married, and then when you put your income together, it's a different story. But now being single again, it's a whole different ballgame. I have to do things differently, and I have to think differently. So back to your question of, what am I saying to myself? Now I have to change that. I'm like, I need to get out of this box. There's infinite possibilities, and there's unlimited resources, and there's unlimited income. But at the same time, I can't kill myself in the process of, in the pursuit of that.
Yeah, we need some new language for you.
Yeah.
Sleep is the new broke. First of all, I compliment you on your creativity, right? I mean, you could make up posters for people based on the things that you came up with that you were telling yourself.
Yeah.
The bad news about sleep is the new broke is it's not really useful.
Right.
Really.
No.
That's telling you some stuff that, is going to make you sick. I just want to be able to is what we call a limiter, right? It's a ceiling. And our minds are incredibly adept at creating whatever we actually believe.
Right.
Right? What we believe really is our reality. And, I'll tell you a little bit about belief, Cherese. This might be helpful, especially for somebody like you who is, truly what I'm seeing here in my notes, a rock star doer. Holy smokes. We take action when we want to make something happen. And that makes perfect sense, right?
Right.
We take action when we want to make something happen. Often, that action creates outcomes that are not what we intended, or they're not as good as we intended. Now, you said, for all of the work that I'm doing, I should be farther along by now. What the hell? How could my income be the same as it was when I was 23 years old?
Right.
Okay. So we're taught, you want to do something, sister? Get to work. Roll up your sleeves, bust your ass. Let's go.
Right.
And that works to a certain degree, as long as you don't have an underlying belief that's working against the action. And what happens is we never go back and we examine what we actually believe. Our beliefs create our thoughts, right? And our thoughts create our feelings. And if we were going to really draw this out, that goes in back and forth, right? Our feelings create our thoughts create our feelings, but both of that little loop is all fueled by what you actually believe.
Yeah.
So you've got this belief and it creates your thoughts, which creates your feelings. And then those thoughts and feelings create our choice of what action or inaction we're going to take. And those actions create outcomes. So what happens is if the belief is sleep is the new broke, you've got to hustle or you're not going to make it. And then things like sickness and death and trauma and whatever get in the way, the actions don't create the outcomes of abundance. They create the outcomes of just enough because they're based on that belief. Does that make sense?
Absolute sense.
Okay. So in order to create this new, in order to break the bars on that cage and create this new abundance that can fuel your happiness, we have to dive into what you believe. Okay, so as I ask you these questions, I want you to dig back as much as you can into those like little dusty, cobwebby corners of your brain, right? Because you're smart, Cherese. You're smart, and you have done a lot of this mindset work. Intellectually, I hear that you already get it. Okay. But I want to know what, even though you know intellectually, is behind that knowledge that's holding you back. What do you believe about wealth?
I used to think that I should say. I was taught that I can do anything, but wealth is not just money. Wealth is a mindset. It's a mindset that you're not really born with, but you are kind of, because it ingrains in your DNA. So wealth to me is a culmination of your mind, your body, and your spirit coming together to create what it is that you need: an abundance of money, an abundance of love, an abundance of family. And all of those things together equal your sum total of wealth. That's my definition of it.
Okay. What do you believe your ability to tap into all of that wealth is?
Sitting here today, I can tell you that I'm like sitting right in the middle of it. I'm sitting right in the middle of it, but I was so bogged down with all of the, like, okay, so the way I see it is like the box that we were talking about. So I'm like sitting in that box, and like old sweaters are being thrown on top of my head, an old pair of jeans or an old shoe. It's like the box that you need to take to the Goodwill. Mm-hmm. And I'm just like hanging out in it, just like, like, oh, that hurt. That jacket had a buckle on it. It hit me on the side of my head. It's like, Cherese, just get out of the damn box. But I just, for some reason, just part of me, I'm realizing was just stuck there, and it's just like, I just gotta get out. I just gotta get out.
Getting out is easy when you recognize why you're there.
Mm-hmm.
Right? You know all the things to do, right? To be successful. You know that wealth is abundance in all the different aspects of your life.
Mm-hmm.
I think, I'm not sure, but I think that I'm hearing that at least intellectually, you believe you're worthy of that abundance.
Mm-hmm.
So what's getting in the way?
I asked that question. And what I got was, my one word for this year was execute. And when I say procrastination, but I have like over 15 years of experience, all this knowledge and all these seminars and like all this stuff. But the fear of success, probably, or what I would lose for pushing, is probably the biggest thing that was keeping me in that box.
Okay. So let's spell it out. What do you fear will happen if you are an enormous success?
Oh.
It doesn't matter if intellectually you automatically say, yeah, I know that won't happen. But when I ask the question, what do you fear? What are the things that come to mind?
The first thing that comes to mind is the chatter that comes along with people who are successful. The judgment, the talk, years and years ago, I was so concerned about perception and what things looked like. I'm working towards getting out of that. I'm not as OCD about it as I was previously, but there's still a little bit of that residue there that causes a lot of, I say doubt, but it causes a lot of hesitation for me. So that's one thing.
Well, Judged in what way? If you're successful, people will judge you poorly?
No, not that they would judge me poorly. Kind of, and I guess it doesn't really make sense, but like, who does she think she is that she
Thank
did
you.
X, Y, and Z, and who does she think she is that she does that? That type of chatter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay. What else? What else will happen if you're successful?
If I'm successful on the bright side of it.
No. I don't want the bright side yet. We're gonna get there.
Okay.
Let's stay with the dark side.
Okay. On the dark side, if I'm successful, the good thing. Well, no, we're not going to do that. It's hard for me to kind of go backwards.
I know you're good and optimistic.
Yeah.
And it is hard to go. It is hard to go backwards. But when we're not getting traction, it means that there's something left back there.
Okay.
And we got to let it go if you're going to get traction.
So another thing is that I would fail, and then I would fail in front of everyone, and that for me, I think that was number one. And then the chatter and the people talking would be part of it. So the biggest thing would be is that I would become super successful, and then it would come crashing down.
So it's not like you'll fail to get it going. It's that you'll get success and lose it.
Yes.
Okay. What else? Anything else on that fear list?
No, not really.
So those are the big ones.
Mm-hmm.
Who does she think she is? And if I make all this money or create all this wealth and I lose it, it'll be humiliating.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. What's on the good side of success?
I would be able to take care of myself and my family without having to worry, and balance my checkbook and really balance my checkbook and not say, okay, I know this, and this, that's it. The balancing is over. I would be able to help a lot of people because I love to give back. Like even now I'm involved in a lot of different community activities and stuff like that. But I want to be able to provide more than what I'm currently doing. My stress level, I guess it will switch because I won't be stressed about, okay, my numbers are going to hit this month, which I will still be thinking about, but I'll have cushion so that I'm not as, let's say, stressed in that sort of way. It'll be like a good stress, if that makes sense.
Yeah, of course it does.
Yeah, and to be able to leave a legacy, like for me, that's important. Since my ancestors, my parents are gone, like all of my ancestors, mostly I only have like 2 uncles left and two or 3 aunts. To be able to create this legacy for my family, I think is very, very important because my mom was 47 when she died. Her sister was 39, very young.
Wow.
And I want to be able, and I will live a long life, but I want to be able to affect change in our DNA structure. I want to affect change in the way our families were raised and brought up and our thought processes about money. And it has to be visible. It can't just be a book knowledge thing.
That's some powerful stuff you have there.
Yeah.
Okay. Would it be okay if I gave you some homework?
Yes.
All right. I get that your word of the year is execute, and I'm not going to ask that you stop doing over the next 2 weeks until we meet again any of the things that you're doing that are helping to get you towards your goals. Okay? But I want you to think about that as a little machine just for these 2 weeks. All right?
Okay.
Execution is just, I do the things on my list. You're not going to put any of your energy there.
Got it.
So over these next 2 weeks, I want you to dive in to these 2 statements. Who the hell does she think she is? Okay. And if I get successful, I might lose it. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And I want you to daily spend some time, even though it feels like a repetitive exercise, framing those statements so that they will move you forward, but you have to believe it. Okay. So, who does she think she is can become, I know that I'm this and I'm tenacious and I never give up and I'm optimistic and I'm smart and that's great. In that, it has to be all things that you believe, at least a little,
Mm-hmm.
and it has to feel like it cracks the bar, right? So if you think of who does she think she is as a bar,
Okay.
and you list off words like, okay, she's tenacious and she's smart and she's all these things, and you're like, yeah, I believe those about myself. If it doesn't feel like when you read that back, like it's making a little crack in that bar, doesn't count for this. It's good.
Okay.
It's still good, but it doesn't count for this.
Okay.
Okay. And I just want you to work on them. And the same thing with I might get success and lose it. And 1, that would be horrible. And 2, it will feel humiliating to fail in front of everyone. I want you to just write to yourself every single day how you would dispute those facts or those thoughts. They're not facts. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. If you get stuck and are not really sure what you're doing with this journaling, go ahead and reach out to me. We're friends on Facebook now, so you can reach out to me via Facebook Messenger, or you can email me, because it's the work that we do between these sessions that really create the change. So if you're stuck, we don't want you to be stuck.
Okay.
Okay? Sound good?
Okay. Yes, absolutely.
All right. You're a rock star, Cherese. I can't wait to hear what you come up with.
Okay, great. Thank you.
All right. So now I've got a little tip that everyone out there can use to boost happiness and success and the feeling of both, even when you're exhausted. And, it's funny. I prepare these tools in advance just based on what is in alignment with the topic. But again, it's so, I don't know, the universe has my back. Perfect for this Cherese episode. It's a tiny act of service. So, and I heard you over and over again in your conversation, Cherese, and your story of telling us how you got through. You got through those horrible times by helping other people. The moment that we serve, it boosts our endorphins. Okay. The moment that we offer something to somebody else, it gives us energy that we didn't think that we had. And that, in fact, sometimes we don't have for ourselves. So for all of you out there, over the next few weeks, while Cherese is working on her homework, notice when you're not feeling as happy as you could be, or when you're feeling too tired to elevate your mood, and do something. And when I say tiny, I mean tiny. You can smile at someone on the street. You can pick up a piece of trash and put it into a garbage can. You can do any small act of service. Just take a moment to notice how it makes you feel. Okay, Cherese, I want to thank you for doing this deep work and sharing your really personal story with all of us today. I know that there are people out there who found that useful, and I hope you found it useful too.
Thank you, Wendy.
I also want to thank everybody for listening in with us today. And in fact, if you want, you can do more than just listen. If you're out there grappling with some stuck spots in any area of your life, or you feel like there's more for you, but you can't quite put a finger on what that is or how you can get there, you can come on to A Glimpse Inside and play with me too. It's free. And while you'll be getting coached specifically about your life, you'll also be providing one of those tiny acts of service, right? By letting others benefit from listening in. It's super duper easy to sign up. Just go to aglimpseinside.superpowerexperts.com. No www, just type in aglimpseinside.superpowerexperts.com and click the link to share your story. If anonymity is important to you, you don't have to use your real name. Please don't be shy. I'd really love to hear from you. Our friend Cherese will be back here with us in 2 weeks for episode 3 of our happiness series. For now, she's off to play with this stuff in her real life. I'll hope you'll play with it in yours as well. Until then, big love.
Are you ready to discover your superpowers? Go now to superpowerexperts.com and take the superpower quiz today.